Yeah.
Well, hello. I'm glad that you guys have joined us. You're going to be watching this after the fact because Instagram didn't cooperate with us today, but that's okay because we worked it out and we're on Zoom. And I'm here with the fabulous Jon Dingle, who I've just gotten to know recently because I discovered his books through Tanya with our Thriller Book Lovers group. And I got
Yeah.
to read, get it right,
That's great.
before the devil knows. I got to read the third book in his fabulous Gus Wheeler FBI series, and I have the first two on my Kindle, but I confess I haven't read them yet. But I'm going to. This is a great book, and it arrived at my house. I have to show you. First of all, I get this fancy smancy box, and then there's some other goodies. There's a crime scene tape and a like an evidence toe tag look like and a whole bunch of
Mhm.
stuff. I just realized I left them sitting on my desk in there when we changed rooms to go on Zoom. But anyway, I got this whole package of goodies from you, which just makes it that much more fun. And then, of course, the book, the most important part. So, Jon, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love it. Absolutely love it. Tech issues aside, it's great to be here.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while, I think Mercury's still in retrograde. I'll have to look. Every once in a while, the little tech bugs
Yep.
just don't
Gets a little
cooperate.
wonky. Yep.
Yeah. So you're in Maine.
That's right. Yep. We long and short of it, born and raised in Massachusetts, lived overseas, lived in Australia for a number of years, my wife and I with our two oldest children. Moved to Australia from Boston with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. So I feel like I'm battle tested in terms of relocations, right? And then we bought this old house back in the early 2000s, and it was in disrepair. It was tough shape. It's like a 200-year-old house. And so we spent 3 or 4 years to restore it. And we came up summers when the kids grew up and empty nesters in 2016. So we moved up here full time in 2017.
Now,
Yep.
why did you go to Australia? Was it for work?
Actually, for my wife's work. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I was sort of
Oh,
a tag along. I got a job with the company as well, but it was great. We lived in Melbourne for a few years and got to travel just as part of the work, got to travel all around Australia and New Zealand. It's just magical. It was great.
fabulous. But then you came home.
That's right. Yeah, the heartstrings pull from afar. You know, when you have little kids and you're and Australia was amazing and Melbourne was great. But when you have a Christmas and it's about 110 degrees and Santa's wearing shorts and cut off shirt, we're born and raised in New England, right? That's just very different, right? So yeah, the heartstrings pulled and the kids were getting school age, so we moved back then.
I go to Maui a lot.
Hmm.
And one time I was there in December because my nephew decided to get married on Maui in December. And I was laying by the pool, and the pool is right in front of like the lobby. So there was like a bank of windows behind me, right? And what was
Yeah.
right in front of the window? The giant Christmas tree. And I remember sitting there and turning around and going, I'm not coming back here in December. This is too
Yeah.
weird for me. Because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah. I
a
feel like there's
California
like a
girl. We don't have snow where I live, but it's cold and it's usually foggy,
yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's a
and the
seasonal shift.
fireplace. And I'm
Yep.
out here in my bathing suit, on December 15th going,
I'm
I
hot.
don't think so. Yeah. No. Anyway, so you never lost your accent though.
No, it's funny. Yeah, I don't. Every once in a while, I suppose I pick up on it. Um, but I get the comments often. Between that and my laugh, I get the comments about both often. So yeah, it's clearly thick. Its roots run
Yeah.
deep. Right.
Now, when you were growing up, were you a big reader?
Interestingly, no. My mom was a ferocious reader. I can still
Oh,
remember I grew up, sort of classic lower middle income home. They both work. My mom was a nurse. My dad was a postman. And so they both worked sort of a typical work day and then would come home and he'd watch TV till, midnight or whatever, Johnny Carson, all those shows, right?
yeah.
But he would read about probably 7 or 8 o'clock at night. She would read. So before I went to bed, I'd go in and say goodnight and stuff. And she'd read a little bit to me or whatever. But I really was never a reader. And then in college, just started reading some like nonfiction books, weird things, UFO stuff and that sort of stuff, right? But never really get into it. And then a long way of saying when we lived in Australia, sad to say, I'm embarrassed to say, the TV schedules were very different down there. So the regular TV ended at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. And so I
Oh,
can remember going to bed one time and my wife was a reader. as a reader and said, here, read this. And it was a Patricia Cornwell book, a K. Scarpetta book. And from that moment, hooked, absolutely hooked, just burned through all the authors of that era, just burned through all of them and have been a reader ever since.
So when did the writing bug hit?
So my wife and I found out we were having our third child, surprise. And so we went away. I think after we had him, I think it was about a year old. We went away for a long weekend to a bed and breakfast on the coast of Massachusetts, and we both, over dinner one night, just kind of laughingly said, what's on your bucket list? And so we each put together a list of 5 things on our bucket list, and becoming an author was on both of our lists. So we started writing together. This is probably early mid 2000s ish. And she's extremely creative, one of the most creative people I've ever met. Paints, draws, gardens, writes, photographs, she just does everything. And I don't. I am absolutely not creative. And we started writing together, and that didn't really work. It wasn't really a fit. And then I just started writing. She was a different type of writer, and I just started writing it more and more. So I think once we became empty nesters, I decided I'm gonna kind of make a run at this and see if it works. And that was, boy, the beginning of a very long road at that point.
Was it? Tell us
Yeah.
about that, because people always want to hear the road to publication, and they're usually stories about tenacity.
Yeah, I will say that. Perseverance, tenacity, grinding it out. There's a lot in there that's not very sexy. People think about, hey, like, the road shows and book tours or whatever. But there's a lot that leads up to that. So think of late call it 1999, 2000 period, thinking we wanted to write, dabbling a bit while the kids were young, and that just didn't work, right? 3 kids bouncing around, that there's just no time.
No.
And then empty nesters in 2016. So really sort of 2017 onward, putting my mind to it. And I would say through that whole period, easily wrote 4 or 5 complete novels that were rubbish, absolute rubbish. I mean, I can't even find the files. I'm sure I burned them in effigy somewhere. And then worked hard in terms of getting it edited over probably 2-year period. And that brings us to probably 2021, 2022. We're in 26. So then got an agent in 23. Took about a year to get an agent, 9 or 10 months to get an agent. And then took another 15 or 16 months to get a publisher. And then, so that brings us through where they had the book, Thule Publishing had the book about a year plus before it was published. Karma Never Sleeps, the first one. So they held that back so that I could write another one to kind of have them come out sort of lockstep. So really 2017, 5 years to get it edited, to get an agent, another 2 years, give or take, to find a publisher, another year plus to get it published. Yeah. So yeah, it's a lot, but I think you're right. Absolutely grinding it out and banging away and sticking with it.
Okay, so that brings 2 questions to mind. The first one, where did you get the idea for Gus Wheeler?
Absolutely my wife's idea.
Oh, really?
Right? Yeah, I can take some credit for writing, and I can take all the credit for writing it, obviously. But the idea, the book started, for anyone who's read that, Karma Never Sleeps, the first one. 2 main characters in that book, Mel and Gus's partner, 3, I guess, suppose, Vanessa. The original characters were Gus and Mel, way back when, decades ago. I tried to write a book that was not law enforcement, that Mel, thriller, that Mel solved the crime. And Jeannie, I just was not good enough to write that book. I tried so many times. I couldn't figure out how she would solve clues and have access to information that law enforcement does. It just wasn't in me. I think I can do it now, but then, a newbie, right? You can't figure it out. And so that was a long, long road. And through that, so my wife came up with the characters, came up with the basic premise of mean girls growing up in a small town. And so I came up with a lot of the thriller-esque type things, the stuff the bad guy does, right? That sort of thing. And then it's funny, when I flash forward writing it, and she was no longer helping me write it for like the last 8 or 10 years or whatever, writing it, my second editor said, I said, this is like hard writing how a group of women relate and this and that. And she said, well, you're the one that chose to write a book about women. I'm like, no, I didn't. This is a leftover. Like, if I'm left to my own devices, I would have written about something else, So anyway, yeah, she came up with the idea for that. Over time, I came up with the idea with the story and the thriller parts of it, that sort of thing. And then lastly, Gus, the element of him being a musician, an aspiring or struggling musician, was really her idea and my son's idea. Our middle child is a professional musician, a jazz player, and
What does he
plays the
play?
bass. Plays the upright bass. Yeah, and he plays electric. He plays a lot now. He went to school in New Orleans, jazz player in New Orleans, then moved to Nashville. So he plays all sorts of music now. But Gus is modeled after him in so many ways: looks, appearance, mannerisms. Right. So it's definitely a family effort to get to that, that point. And even now, Sam, our middle guy, he reads. He's the alpha reader of all the books. He's got a great dyslexic mind that kind of strings things together. And so he comes up with any scene that's Gus in music, Sam reads it and beats it up. Nope, I wouldn't be thinking that. In the second book, he walks into a green room. Sam, you walked into a green room. What do you see? Right? I peck it all out and get it all down and then turn it into a chapter, So the music parts of these books are extremely authentic. It's from a musician. First
I was going to say, because I'm a musician.
Oh,
and
awesome.
And none of that didn't ring true with me, even to the point where Gus drags his bass around with him. He has his old cheap, kind of an imitation bass that he can break down.
Yeah, the foldable.
Certainly can't take the big one, right? And he's in the hotel room or motel, really, playing this bass, driving his partner crazy. And she's like,
"Yep,
buddy, really?"
Exactly.
Because that's so true. Because I remember I got a very nasty phone call one time in New York City. Because we were performing at Carnegie Hall that night. And apparently a bunch of us got phone calls because it was the middle of the afternoon. And I thought, well, I'm safe to practice here. And I was tooting away on my flute, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they have a lot of airline pilots and people who stay at that hotel and they were trying to sleep.
Yeah, catch for the night flights, right?
So when I got to that scene, I was like, oh, yeah. Because the front desk called and said, ma'am, are you playing the flute? I'm like, yeah. I thought she was going to compliment me, and she's like,
yeah, you need to stop.
Yeah. So then I felt terrible. And then when we got to the concert hall that night, we all went, did you get it? Yeah, I got a call too. And I thought, oh dear. Some of the guys went downstairs, like the tubas and the euphoniums and stuff. They went down to a conference room.
Right. Yeah. You're safe there. That's right.
I thought my little flute. No.
Yeah.
So yeah. So I love the parts where Gus he's dragging the bass around and, all the musical influences. So do you have the other two books there?
I do. Let's see. So
hold them up.
First book for everyone. Okay. Carmen Never Sleeps.
Now, right? What kind of crime is he solving in Carmen Never Sleeps?
So in Carmen Never Sleeps, he's called to a small town in Massachusetts. And there's been a murder of a woman about 6 months before, which they knew about, but there was sort of an isolated murder. Staties handled it or whatever. But then 6 months, you're at 6 months in. And surprise, another woman gets murdered, and they're in the same friend group. So same small friend group in a small town. So the locals, being outmatched, call in the FBI. So Gus and his partner Vanessa go in, and they solve a crime essentially of a group of women who have grown up together, who have experienced all of life's events together, that sort of thing. They're frenemies, they're competitors but friends. It's really that type of dynamic in a small town, and there's a past secret that kind of gets unearthed and sort of comes back to haunt them.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Okay, so now book number 2.
So book number 2 is Wings of Madness.
Okay, now what's that one dealing with?
And that one, so book number 1, Karma, is a small, really, really small remote town, right? I want to do something different. So Wings of Madness is a small city, or medium-sized city in Massachusetts, Pawtucket Falls. So it's got a very urban vibe. And there's an area of the town in Pawtucket Falls that the city has sort of cordoned off to be like a music emporium, if you will, almost like a small, like a Beale Street, right, in Memphis, or a small quarter in New Orleans. But it's only like 3 or 4 blocks square and that sort of thing. It's right along the Merrimack River. And it's Pawtucket Falls, right? It doesn't have the heritage, the lineage of these other music cities like Nashville or what else. So it's essentially a place that's people can get away with crime and that sort of thing. And the music venues haven't become great jazz places. They've become really places for 80s cover bands, right? So it's, I think, that kind of downtrodden, kind of sketchy part of town. And women start disappearing in that part of town. And the mystery is that they'll go into clubs and this and that. And there's no record of them leaving the club. There's no video, no eyewitness, nothing. Like, no one can figure out how they've left the clubs. And that's a mystery. But there's one band that's linked to whether they're playing at the club where the woman goes missing, or they know a woman that's gone missing, that sort of thing. So it's all centered around one 80s cover band. And Gus comes in, Gus and Vanessa come in, they investigate that, and they figure out how the women are being taken and that sort of thing, and solve the crime at the end. So, but it's a very, very urban vibe. Think like, again, sleazy part of town, concrete, that sort of thing, right? It's got that edgy vibe to it.
I love an atmospheric story. There's nothing better.
Same.
So we talked about Gus and where he came from. We got to talk about Vanessa. Okay, like, I love her so much. Where in the world did you come up with her? Because she is great. And talk about badass. So and calling Gus right out on his crap. I mean, these two, the banter. Listen, I worked in a law enforcement agency for 14 years, and I know how cops talk to each other. And this is absolutely authentic.
Oh, nice.
That's the banter so awesome is right on. So how did you come up with her, and where did you learn about this, how they talk to each other?
So I can take full credit for that one. So we're Gus, we'd help with Gus in the starting and Mel and that sort of thing. At a certain point, you need other characters, right? For the dialogue and for the bouncing ideas off, that sort of thing. So I gave Gus a partner, and I wanted someone to be very different. So Gus, for readers that haven't read them, Gus is sort of like 6'4", has the build of a swimmer, long, lanky, plays the upright bass and has a 7/8 bass, right? Because he's so tall. And he's a good looking guy, but in a weird, like in a different way. He's not like, hey, model gorgeous. His nose is a little big, his hair's wavy, but a little unkept, right? But he's got this aura about him. He's got that music vibe.
Yep.
So I need something different. In comes Vanessa. Vanessa's younger than he is by 6 years or so. Gus grew up in Colorado, in the wilderness in Colorado, and did search and rescue and that sort of thing. So he's very outdoorsy. Vanessa grew up in the streets of Detroit. Gang infested, riddled, right? She's got tats from being a gang at a very young age, and that's a survival instinct. That's the only way you could survive. Grew up in the projects, broken home. She, Kraft macaroni and cheese was her savior, right? Howard Johnson's, that sort of thing. And so she just has an edginess to her. So she's got tats on her body that over time she's starting to try to get rid of, right? But really, really tatted up a lot. She's got piercings. She's got her hair that's shaved on one side, a little fluffy on top. She has one single braid down there.
Right.
And she's got that edge. She's got that edge, no BS edge. So she is a compilation of a number of people. She's a compilation of one of my wife's friends from work, that for the long braid and who happens to be from Detroit. So that's kind of got that inner city vibe going. She's got the edginess of one of my daughter's friends. She's tall. She's a good looking woman. But that's not the first thing you notice about her. You really notice she's confident. She can hold her own. She can hold her own with anybody, right? She's not afraid to speak her mind. And that keeps Gus kind of on edge, because Gus is a chill guy at his core, but Vanessa gives him that edge to drive forward and solve things. So I wanted somebody very different than Gus. And that's the best that I come out. And there's another woman I was thinking of, but it's really sort of a mashup of a number of people to have that fire. She has a real fire to get things done and to do things her way, right?
I love the relationship.
Yeah, that's so great to hear.
It's like a perfect partnership because they're giving each other crap all the time, but they will literally die for each other.
Yeah.
They're devoted.
Yeah.
So that brings us to da da da. Do I have it? Yeah, I got the right direction this time. Okay, so now you send them off to northern Maine. Big isolated swaths of land, little teeny tiny towns, which I'm assuming is realistic because I've not been to Maine.
Yes, that's very realistic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
And you get this whole religious cult thing going with this book.
Yeah.
And this is pretty rough in terms of the crimes that are being committed. Now you don't have a bunch of gory details.
And I don't like to put gore in my books at all.
No, but you don't need to, because I got the message. I conjured up enough gore in my own imagination.
I'll leave that to you. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A safe amount, right?
Yeah.
So I could still sleep. But where did you come up with this idea? Because this has sold me to go back and read the other two books now.
Nice. Yep.
First of all, it's fast paced. It never slows down. So I never got bored. But where did you get this idea? I have to know.
All right. So I have 3 points I'll hit on with that. I love the question. So
Okay.
the first one's very simple. I have wanted to write that story easily for decades. I have a list of things way back when to the bucket list era. I have a list of topics. I just like weird topics, right? I like things like I said, like UFOs or like, exorcisms, or I like weird things like that. And I think they're interesting if you can play with them for a story. And I've always loved the idea. I don't know very much about, well, I know more now, but I don't know very much about, I'm not very religious. I'm not religious at all. I was raised Catholic. I've gone through and gotten first communion and confirmation, but that was it. Like basically
Yeah.
my mom was like, you're done. You can get in. We need to get into if so, right? Like really not religious at all. But I've always wanted to write a story on trying to put that square peg in the round hole, the square peg being the Old Testament and the world that was viewed as appropriate in,
Mm-hmm.
and today's world and culture, and trying to fit those ideals, those views, those practices in today's world. I always want to write that story. In terms of geography, Gus and Vanessa are dealing with stuff around New England, and so I did sort of a country story, right? But a rural suburban story, call it, but it's country. I did an urban story, and I thought, where could a church that adhered to the Old Testament kind of hide out? Where could that be okay, right? And I thought northern Maine. I mean, there are areas up in Aroostook County and so forth that, like, large passenger planes crash into the canopy and are never found again. I mean, it is extremely rural. It's not a stretch to say when you're up, there are parts of Maine, a lot of Maine that's north of Canada.
Yeah.
When you're up in that area, right, that people live off the grid. They really do sort of hunt and grow what they eat and that sort of thing, and don't have electricity. That's an area of the country, right? So to put a church up there that adhered to the Old Testament, I thought that would kind of give that eerie vibe, right? So that would really sort of click.
Yeah.
So I'll pause there, but that's kind of where the story came from. I've always wanted to write it. I thought that would be a great setting.
It's very eerie. And then now I found this interesting. You actually gave the church a name.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's another big book that's out right now that talks about religion, but in a very vague manner. You went there. You gave it a name. You gave it kind of a basis. You weren't afraid to do that.
Not at all. It's a fictitious name. I made it up, right? I'm not
Right.
going to trash a church. But there are, and the Father Benedict is modeled after a real person.
Okay.
The background has been, I've picked out some of the key details to make it accurate in terms of issues and, fights with the church and being excommunicated and that sort of stuff. You have changed the name, obviously, and all that. But there is a person that I model Father Benedict after. There are churches, many churches. A close friend of mine went to a church very much like the one I described.
Oh.
So drawing on that, and just like I like to say, a frack ton of research in terms of the religious elements, what books are in the Old Testament versus New Testament, the Bible passages, like, to have Bible passages as clues. I just always wanted to write that story. I just really wanted to do that. And again, I had help. I had two of my children fighting to give me ideas to see who could get top billing in the acknowledgement section of the book with this, right? And so I am so proud of this book because I've wanted to write it for so long, and it came out. It really, at a certain point, Janie, just sort of wrote itself. This is the last point I want to make. Karma Never Sleeps was written over a multi-year period and got hammered with edits and molded into a story. Wings of Madness, second book, there's a saying in publishing, the second book, she's a bitch. And it really is. Three hardcore rounds of edits to get my second book, Wings of Madness, done. One of those was mine, pulling it back. This last book, figured out, I take usually 3 weeks or a month or so to get the characters down, the backstories and that sort of stuff, kind of flush it out. And then it just went. And I literally just wrote this book, and at a certain point it wrote itself. And I gave it to Sam, my son, and he's like, you crushed it. I have no edits. And I gave it to the publisher, Thule. And the only edit, which was so awesome, that Thule had, my editor there, Sinclair, she's amazing. She said, this book will be read by a lot of people outside of New England. Mm-hmm. And your characters say, yeah, a lot. You might want to dial that back because it's that New England-ism, right? Yeah. So I had to dial that back. That was the only edit. I mean, it really was a very, very easy book to write. the book really essentially wrote itself. You know, there were
Okay.
points where I was just blasting out chapter after chapter. It just kind of unfolded, you know.
That's great. It was the one you were meant to write.
I think so. It was such a joy. It was so fun. Like every day getting up, crack of dawn. It was like I can't wait to get back at this, you know.
Now, and is this book finding a lot of new readers like me for you? Because it seems
It
like
is.
maybe
Yeah.
this is your breakout book.
Oh, heavens, knock on wood, don't jinx it. So it's not out yet, right? It comes out July 29th for anybody watching. But what I found is that folks that have, you know, we sent ARCs out, you know, we have a PR group sending ARCs out, those things. I found many people, you know, more than I can count, say, wow, loved it. Now I've got Karma and Wings on my TBR and I'm digging into Karma. So to your point, it's a great way for people to jump into the series, and it's a standalone. You can read it as a standalone, and they've come back to the other books because of it.
Yeah, that's what's happening with me because, frankly, I was not aware of you, and then Tanya reached out, and I went, "Oh, that sounds really good." Okay, because I
Yep.
love to find a new author, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What are you working on next? Do you have something already started?
Yes. So originally, back to one of my earlier comments, when I wrote Karma, it was a standalone thriller. After my agent, I want to come back to the process of finding an agent and publisher because that's a marathon real quick. But after we got the publisher, we had a different publisher hit it and say, yes, we like it. And we went back to the publishers that had the manuscript, and Thule was one of them. And Thule came back and said the head editor had gone on maternity leave and it slipped through the cracks. Like, no, we love it. We just have one requirement. Would Jon consider making it a series? I'm like, oh no, like, shoot me now. Like, of course. And so they offered me a 3-book deal.
Oh,
And
I see.
so, yeah. And so Before the Devil Knows is the 3rd book. And then as I was coming down the home stretch of writing that, when my editor got it, Truly came back and said, hey, we're going to go through copy editing and the rest. Do you have more Gus in you? Do you think there are more Gus stories? And at first I said, no, I don't think so. I think this is a good arc. And then my son, Sam, the bassist, the player, the Gus model, said, hey, I have an idea. And he gave me a phenomenal idea that stretches the series out dramatically, like significantly. And so I went back to Tula. I said, yeah, I've got more Gus in me. And they said, well, tell us how many, and we're in, because the series is doing great and we love it. And so I said, well, let's do 3 more. And so I had to write synopsis for the next 3 books. Yep. So as of today, I just hit page 200 out of essentially 300 of the 4th Gus book.
Yay. I'm so glad, because that was going to be my next question. When do I get some more Gus? And B. I love these two.
I know. The drill is, generally speaking, I'm a slow writer as much as I love the process, just to get it right. I like things to marinate. Write a chapter and a day or 2 later, like, I could be better. So essentially a calendar year to write the book. So I get the book into the publisher at the end of January. And like with Before the Devil Knows, end of January, it goes through the editing process and it comes out summer. So this is end of July. So I'm assuming the next book, I have to get it into by the end of January. I'm assuming it'll be a summer of 2027 release.
All right. Well, you have my address.
Yeah, that's right. I do.
I'll be looking for another one. This box is great, by the way. I'm just putting the box up on my bookshelf and keeping the book in there so it doesn't get all messed up.
Nice.
What a great idea. I love it when publishers and publicists do great promotions like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask you about something else. And this is something I ask every author I talk to about.
Mm-hmm.
So writing is now your full-time job?
No, it's not. I'm still
have a job?
Yeah, I'm still working. Yep.
Okay, so what are you doing?
So me and a few folks own a consulting business. So we do like renewable energy, helping folks develop or helping folks buy energy companies, that sort of thing. So like economic financial stuff. Yep.
I didn't know what your job had been, before you were published.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still doing that. Then you're writing. Kids are out of the house now, right? They're all grown.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. Three kids and they're gone. Yep.
That makes it easier. Yeah.
It does.
So, I hear from a lot of authors that social media is really like another job.
Oh, heavens, yeah.
And you have the most hilarious videos. I am not kidding. The other day, I was laughing so hard. And if anybody has not watched them, you need to go on Instagram. Your handle is @Dingle, right?
That's right. Yep.
Just search for that. Singing Freddie Mercury with a hairbrush. Oh, I have a hairbrush right here. Mama, I'm like, I am rolling on the floor. And the part that got me was when your daughter goes, Dad, let your freak flag fly. I was like, oh my God. I think I watched it 4 times. I was so hysterical. First of all, who's coming up with these crazy videos? Number one.
Yep.
And number two, how are you managing? Because I see so many authors all over Instagram all the time. And I think to myself, when are they getting their writing done? But
Yeah,
that's the way of the business now, right?
it is. Yeah, yeah. You've hit on a couple of things. First and foremost, absolutely. I find if I could just write, the books would be done much quicker, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you only have so many hours in a day, even if you're writing full time. I will say that the marketing, social media, publishing stuff, getting editorial reviews, like all the stuff around the edges, there's a lot to get done there, is easily 30-40%, if not more, of writing. I mean, there's just so much to do. Back and my stuff now, my daughter, so I have 3 children, daughter, son, middle guy, modeled after Gus. Our oldest daughter, Mac, she's the one in the video. She manages my social media stuff.
Okay. So
So,
she helps out.
yeah, she does the posting. I'm not very technical, so she does a lot of that stuff. I do the interactions when people review. I'm posting, commenting, thanking people for reading the book. I'm doing all that. She actually develops a post. I approve the text and all that stuff, but then she posts it and does all the behind the curtain stuff, basically. So that helps out a ton. I can't imagine trying to develop content and post it as well. It's just not enough time in the day.
Yeah. But you have to do it for people to find you.
Yeah. Yep.
And then of course you have people like me going, hey, can you spare an hour to chat with me? I mean, I'm just piling on, but
Yep.
hopefully
I will give a
books.
shout out. There's another Instagram influencer that's helped out and suggested, hey, this could be great for you to do, and that sort of stuff. So yeah, it comes from all places. But if I didn't have my daughter Mac to help out, I'm not sure how none of this would get done. I mean, she has a style, right? She's creative and she has a style. She's like her mom, and she has a flair for doing this. Mine would be very much blocking and tackling, right? So she adds a lot to it. No, do that, and you can see in the behind the scenes stuff. Right, she's telling me, stand here, do that. I'm just a tool. I'm just wandering around, right?
Oh God, it's so funny though, because it's like you're such a dad.
We love our kids. I love my kids. I love yeah.
No,
Yep.
you really are. You're such a dad, and it's that dad humor. 𝐊𝐴𝐼𝐺 has a lot of stuff on his account. I don't know who posts it for him, but he tells dad jokes.
Yeah. Yep.
And you're right in there with him. I'm just cracking up because, oh my gosh. So you said that's 30-40% of your time.
Easy. Easy. I'm
That's
probably
a lot.
It is a lot, right? It is a lot because, I mean, my view is, it's one thing to write a book, and I happen to like the process and that sort of thing, but it's another thing for somebody like yourself and others to pick up a book that's 400 pages, 300 and something pages, to read the book, right? So you've been gracious enough to read a book I've written, right? And it can stink. It can be the worst thing ever, but you've read it. Or it can be the greatest thing ever, but you don't know. You read it. Then you take the time to write up a review on it. You take the time to post it. You take the time to make all the graphics for your posting. You take the time to go on Goodreads, and once it's published, Amazon and everywhere else, and do all the ratings so that my book can be seen by others, right? I'm not going to let that go unnoticed. Like, that's a tremendous amount of effort, and I'm so grateful for that. So a lot of my time is liking posts, forwarding posts, thanking people for them, DMs like with you and I, like thanking, talking back and forth. Like, I am so grateful that people have shown. I mean, it's such a supportive community. I'm so grateful for that. I don't ever want to take that for granted. So I'm definitely willing to put the time in for that. That to me is easy. That's the easy stuff.
Well, I will tell you that when an author responds, that goes a long way with us because for me, it's just a labor of love. I'm retired.
Yep.
So this is what I do. I don't have to worry about a job, and my kids are out of the house. I'm here by myself.
Yeah.
Life's good, Let's read some books.
Yeah.
Let's sell some books for some authors, right? So let's hold this up again because you can pre-order this thing right now.
Yeah.
But the Bookstagram community is, it is a love fest for the most part.
It's amazing.
Yep. Every once in a while, there's a little drama, and I just go, whatever. Yeah. I'm too old for it, but it is a love fest.
I totally agree. I'm very surprised. I mean, I come out of business and finance. That's not a love fest.
Right.
Right. That's sharp elbows and that's a lot of stuff. Yeah, I can remember just reaching out organically to people on Instagram, like, hey, I have a book coming out. Would you like to review it? Right across the board. I would love to. Yeah. I mean, just again, what community does that? It's so amazing. I feel so blessed to be part of it, you know.
You're talking to a lawyer. That's all I'm going to say about it. My professional alter ego has been retired, but it was Darth Vader.
Oof.
And then I spent 14 years hanging out in prison. So,
Wow.
I've totally mellowed out from the way I used to be. Now I'm just retired and having fun.
Nice.
So I get it. Now, do you ever find time to read books?
It's funny you say that. That's the one, I think, hang up with writing. So having to work, right? Working, writing. So writing and editing and all the social media stuff, there's very little time left. And I love reading. And so I'm an early riser. I'm usually up at like dawn or, 5 a.m.-ish or whatever. And so I force myself in the morning to read at least a few chapters every day. And I would say if I weren't writing, I would be chewing through books like you and others do. There's just, so many hours in the day, right?
Right.
So yeah, I make myself read at least like a chapter, something every day, just to read. It's, it's still an enjoyment,
Well, I think it's kind of like a muscle you need to exercise too.
Totally agree. Totally
Yeah.
agree. And there is an element to read what you write,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you read anything recently that you would recommend?
Yes. The latest book out by 𝐷𝐵𝐾𝐻 was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And I gave it to somebody else to read, so I don't have it here with me, but 𝐷𝐵𝐾𝐻, phenomenal. I'm right now reading It's Not Her by Mary Kubica, loving it, absolutely loving it. And I'm a huge Samantha Downing fan. So anything that she writes, I will devour. Absolutely. It's funny. I met her at BoucherCon in New Orleans, and I was sort of like a little giddy child. I'm like, "Hi, Samantha," and she's looking like, "Who are you?" Like, you don't understand. Like, you're like a hero to me, And then lastly, not least, my all-time favorite is the Charlie Parker series by John Connolly.
Oh, I haven't read those.
Oh my gosh, Jenny. So he is such a great writer. He's probably got 18 to 19 books, maybe more in the series. And it's infuses Charlie Parker, former New York detective, becomes a PI. He's also in Maine. He splits his time and whatnot. But it inserts some supernatural. Just enough, like a dash. His daughter visits him and stuff. It is so well done. It is so unique. It is such a different series. I can't get enough of it. Every time a new book comes out, I devour it. I cannot say enough about the Charlie Parker series.
John Connolly.
John Connolly, Charlie Parker series. Yep. Every Dead Thing is his first one. It's a little gritty.
That's okay.
It is an amazing series. I cannot speak enough about that.
I don't have a problem with grit.
Yeah.
I've seen some case files, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm gonna have to look at like 19 more books. Okay, yeah, I can do this. I can add this to my staff. I'm not even gonna show you. It's just embarrassing. Well, this has been delightful.
Agreed. Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it. And
I'm so glad we could work out the technology.
I know, right? I'm so embarrassed, right? We got it done.
Don't worry about it. It happens. Happens all the time. Okay, so I'm going to hold up this one. You hold up the first two.
All righty.
I've got it the right direction. I want everybody to go out and get these books.
And Wings of Madness. The first
I love the way the covers are all kind of blend together. They're all the same. Did you have anything to do with that?
Yes. So real quick, I got input into the titles. The first book was not called Karma Never Sleeps. A woman at Thule Publishing, a genius, came up with this title. The working title for nearly a decade was What Came Around.
Oh, right. No, I like Karma Never Sleeps.
Exactly. She crushed it.
Yeah.
I did come up with Wings of Madness. It's off of the quote that's in the book.
Okay.
And also I did come up with Before the Devil Knows, which is, again, off the quote inside the book.
Yes.
And the covers, they have a great design team at Thule Publishing, and they gave me for Karma two different covers, very different. One was this one, obviously. The other one looked like it was a retro one out of the 90s, like a white cover with like red slash, you can picture an old John Saul book, a John Sanford book, like that type of thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I gravitated to it because it felt comfortable. Like, oh, I started reading these books, right? But my wife said, no, go with this one. And so the same designer designed each 3 books. And I'll say, you put them next to each other, they're a series. They just, the vibe, it all
Yes.
fits. Yeah.
Yes. Because there's the, the type size and the style and everything. I mean, they all mesh on your shelf.
Yep. Exactly
And
right.
that is another thing that would draw me to the books in a bookstore, because I go, wait, there's more than one. Wait, okay, what is this a series? Oh,
Yep.
I'd walk out with 3.
Yep. Shout out to 𝐊𝐵𝐺𝐻𝑖ghT Designs right there.
Excellent job.
They and she crushed it.
Well, and the other thing is they're very atmospheric, which the books, at least this book, is very atmospheric. I mean, this story would not work in a different setting the way that it does.
Yep.
Where you're up in that remote, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there are moments where you think, oh my God, are Gus and V going to get out of this? Is help going to get there? Because it's not like I call 911 here in this little town I live in, and in 2 minutes I got a cop on my doorstep.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not like that.
There's no cell reception. You don't have communications, right?
Well, that's the other thing too. Yeah. Then they're cut off. They're way out there. And so this really kind of evokes that eerie kind of what's going on here thing that makes people pick a book up, right?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I love it. Absolutely love it.
So kudos to your designer.
Yep.
Great job.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's been lovely. Thank you for doing this. I'm going to let you get back to your other jobs that you have.
That's right. Page 201. That's what I'm going to tackle next. Page 201 and Gus number 4.
But I do appreciate you taking the time out, because like I said, I know I'm one of those pesky people that's drawing you away from everything else you have to do.
No.
It's
Yep.
so delightful to talk to authors and get the inside scoop and sell a few books, hopefully.
Yeah, I love it. If you can't tell, I could talk about writing and books all day long. So that I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for having me on. I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And you know where to send the next book.
Absolutely. Yep. It's in the mail.
All right.
The book